Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I'm Marty, Hanie. I'm a member of this congregation at 1U. It is glorious and a little chilly to be together this morning, worshiping together and online all at the same time. Today, leading worship is Aubrey, Connelly-Candelario, Louise, Christie, Collon, Linnea Nelson, and Julia Chinook. We welcome all to join us as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into a community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. If you would like to watch the service later online, it will be available shortly after this live service. For more information about our congregation, go to orlandouu.org or email WelcomeTeam@orlandouu.org. Our announcements today all have links in our newsletter or on our website and will be repeated for those of you watching online at the end of the service. Right after service today, our in-person fellowship will take place informally around the Labyrinth area. Please keep social distancing in mind, and we will hold the online fellowship simultaneously at 10:30. Online, one of the breakout rooms is the Welcome Center, where you can bring any questions that you have about our church. Also note that Wrestling with Our Understanding of Racism will meet today at 11:30 on Zoom. Our speaker will be Marilyn Baldwin. Marilyn's a board member of the League of Women Voters of Orange County. She is African American and blind. She'll be talking about the intersectionality of being a BIPOC woman and living with a disability. All are encouraged to attend the fall congregational meeting next Sunday, November 14th, either in person or virtually. The meeting will be held shortly after the worship service, either here or on Zoom. Details will be provided in the weekly update. The links to the minutes for review and the form to vote on approval of the May 17th, 2021 annual meeting minutes are posted on the 1U website under Member tab, Our Governance, Congregational Meetings and Budgets. Voting is open now through 1 o'clock on the day of the meeting. Looking forward to seeing everyone there. Now, Joan Nelson, the president of our Board of Trustees, has an announcement.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Marty. Good morning, everybody. I have the honor and privilege of announcing that there was some vague information about where our meeting would be. We now know because every week we've been monitoring the conditions with COVID, and we are yellow 2 weeks in a row. And what that means is, according to our safety protocols, we can have meetings indoors using masks, social distancing. So we will be holding worship service in the sanctuary next Sunday. I know. And in addition, we'll hold our congregational meeting following the service with a little bit of a break in between. So again, pay attention to how we can vote for the approval of the minutes, and please come. We have so many new things to talk about, so many things to celebrate. What an amazing, amazing congregation. So looking forward to seeing everybody next week. We will be doing it virtually as well, working on those details as we speak. Thank you.
Well, that's an announcement we would have all liked to have made. 1U is hosting a blood drive on November the 10th from 8:30 in the morning until 1:30 p.m. Please contact oneblood.org for appointments. And to share the importance of our donations, Nancy Bauer is here to share her experience.
Good morning. In 2006, we were having the kitchen cabinets resurfaced in our home. The night before, we were taking everything out and putting it in the washer room, which was next to the kitchen. We had a kitty fence in the doorway because our older kitty, Lucy, was having problems and was living in that room. So with my hands full, while flinging my right leg over the barrier, the kitty barrier, I tilted and fell directly on my left hip. Uh-oh, I thought. Well, I thought I was fine and I would just lay there for a moment before getting up. After a while, I stood up and started to walk, but my left leg didn't move. I think I'll lie back down, I said to myself. And so I did. Marty called 911, very exciting. The ambulance came and took me to the emergency room. After having an x-ray in the emergency room, I discovered that my left hip had been shattered. I had surgery the next morning and emerged with a new hip I needed to get moving. Now, this was in the old days when surgery was different than it is today for hips, so a different kind of rehab was needed. We found an inpatient rehab center in Winter Park, which for the most part was pretty good. I tend toward anemia, and so I needed 2 blood transfusions after my surgery. One was fairly fast, but the other one lasted all day long. I guess the doctor who ordered it had a long golf game that day. I'm forever grateful to the unknown individuals whose blood I received. Their blood rejuvenated me and helped me have more energy for healing and training my leg to walk again. We all can be the giver of life-saving and rejuvenating blood. As was noted, we're having a blood drive here on Wednesday, November 10th. Is that right? It's right here. Please find the time to give. It is so important. If you can't give, please find a friend or neighbor that can. Every pint makes a difference. For an appointment, go to oneblood.org. You are truly giving the gift of life and health. I know. Thank you.
Our Share the Plate partner this month is the Hope Community Center. Hope Community Center is a learning community dedicated to the empowerment of Central Florida's immigrant and working poor communities through education, advocacy, and spiritual growth. You can find more information on the work the Hope Community Center does by going to their website as found in the newsletter. Please let us know if you donated by dropping a line to programassistant1u@gmail.com. We have a basket and envelopes for making your donation in the box at the back of our worship space today. You can also make an offering online to support the many ministries of this congregation. Go to orlandouu.org and click the donate button on the upper right-hand corner, send a text, or mail us a check. Thank you so much to everyone who has nominated an organization for our Share the Plate. Please be on the lookout for the voting form so you can select the organizations you'd like to support this upcoming year. It will be in the upcoming weekly update. It is wonderful to be here together with you, both those of us whose faces I can see and those who are joining us online. Let us worship together once again.
Please join me in the lighting of the chalice flame with the following words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Thank you.
Good morning. We are called to worship today to look to our spiritual ancestors, Universalist, Unitarian, and personal spiritual ancestors. You will hear stories of people we claim as our own, and you will be invited to think of your own spiritual life and how those who came before you have impacted the core of who you are. As some say, at the soul level. The following tribute is from the UU Ministers Association for Elandria Williams, known to many as E, who died unexpectedly in September 2020. E is an ancestor to Unitarian Universalists everywhere and served as a co-moderator of the UUA from 2017 to 2020. E embodied the love of our Universalist spiritual ancestors. A few days before Elandria died, E recorded a dispatch from their hospital bed on Facebook Live. In that message, E acknowledged that the world is flooded and on fire, the ongoing danger of the pandemic, the outrages of injustice, and the disasters, violence, and brutality all around us. In this context, E told us, we must care for ourselves. We must care for our family and our friends. We must care for our communities. We must practice extending care to those we know and those we don't, so each and every person can get free. We must remember that our actions affect others. We must place care at the center. This is how we work towards liberation for us all. And now these words are from the Reverend Audette Fulbright Furman Folson, who calls us again to worship. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle. This light we kindle is set in the lamp of our history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken, hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it boldly to a new generation. Let us worship together and call upon E, our UU spiritual ancestors, and others we hold dear, to be with us today and every day, lighting the path of love. May it be so.
Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley, watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of the Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own. A church set on a hillside, they decided, looking down upon the village as a mother looks upon her sleeping child. So all the people of the village labored long and hard to build themselves a church. The stone masons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of gray stone, and then the stones they set into stout to make sturdy walls. The glazers made tiny glass panes and fitted them neatly into windows with leaded lines. The foresters sawed the tall birch trees into enormous beams and laid the trusses for the ceiling, and then covered the roof with close-fitting wooden shingles that wouldn't leak a drop of rain. The carpenters carved wood for the pair of wide opening doors, setting them on strong pegs so that the doors hung straight and square. A bell was brought from a faraway city, then hoisted by ropes with a heave and a hoe to the top of the tower. The weavers wore fine clothes for the altar table, clothes and cloths embroidered with flowers and edged with lace. The smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands and hammered thin bronze into shining oil lamps. Finally, when the building of the church was done, the painting of the church could begin. The painters mixed bright colors, royal red and shimmering gold and brilliant blue, and everyone in the village, old and young, women and men, boys and girls, came to decorate their church. They painted flowers, they painted trees, they painted designs around the windows and different designs around the doors. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it and then to sing songs of happiness and praise. Their village had created a church. They had a church now, a church set on the hillside, looking down upon a village as a mother looks upon her sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced the elder of the village, because everyone was hungry after doing their long day's work. "And later tonight, we will come back to pray." So the people of the village went down the hillsides to their homes and to their suppers, all except for one little girl named Zora and her father, who stayed behind. They had brought their own bread and cheese. They ate their food slowly, sitting on the grass on the hillside and admiring their new church with its strong stone walls, its tall tower, and its magnificent bell. After they had eaten, they went back inside, opening those carved wooden doors to go into the gloriously painted sanctuary inside. "Oh, look, Father," Zora cried, running from picture to picture with her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. "See how grand!" "Yes, it is," her father, looking around, nodding with pride. "Yes, it is." "Oh, but Father," she said suddenly, "we have not finished." "What do you mean?" "There are tall iron lampstands all along the walls, but there are no lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back." "Oh, no, little one," said her father. "The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see." He rang the bell to call the people to worship, then took his daughter by the hand and led her back outside. They waited on the grassy hillside next to their beautiful church of strong gray stone. The sun had set behind the mountains, and the night was coming soon. Yet in the growing darkness, tiny points of light from many directions and moved steadily up the hill. "Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one," her father explained. "Each family lights its own way here. Where's our family's lamp?" "Your mother is carrying it. She'll be here soon." The many lights moved closer together, gathering into one moving stream, all headed the same way, growing larger and brighter, all the same. Zora's mother arrived, bearing a burning oil lamp in her hands. The father lifted Zora so she could set their family's lamp high in its tall iron stand. All around the church, other families were doing the same. Soon the church was ablaze with light in every corner, for all the people of the village had gathered to pray and sing. All through the worship service, Zora watched the lights flicker and glow. She watched her family's lamp most of all. When the service was over, her father lifted her high. She took the shining bronze lamp from the lampstand. Its curved sides were warm and smooth in her hands. Her mother carried the lamp home, with the flame lighting the way. The lamp flame lit their house when they returned home. Zora washed her face and got ready for bed by the light of that flame. "Mother," Zora began, as she climbed into her bed and lay down. "Yes, little one?" her mother asked, tucking the red wool blanket around Zora's shoulders. "Father said the light of the church comes from its people." "Yes, but also the people take their light from the church." Over on the table by the fireplace, a shiny bronze lamp was still burning. "And we have that lamp's light every day." "Yes, indeed," said her mother. "And even when we are not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry the light of truth in our minds and the flame of love in our hearts to show us the right way to be. That light, the light from truth and love, will never go out." "Never?" asked Zora. "Never," said her mother. "And this bronze lamp will last for many, many years. And when you are grown, we will give the bronze lamp to you. And when your children are grown, you will give the lamp to them. And all of you will carry it back and forth to church every time." "But there's only one lamp," Zora said. "So make another and let the light grow. And someday tell your children to make more lamps too. And now, good night," her mother said, and kissed Zora once on this cheek, and once on that cheek, and once on her forehead. Zora closed her eyes and drifted into dreams while her mother looked down upon her sleeping child. The years passed. Zora grew. The bronze lamp came into her care. She kept it polished and clean, and when the bell rang out across the valley to call the people to worship, she carried the lamp back and forth to the church on the hillside, the flame always lighting her way. When the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her children, who made more lamps and gave them to their children. And so it went on through the years until even today. And always, the light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and show them and us the way.
Thank you, Julia, for that story from our Unitarian spiritual ancestors in Transylvania. So our joys and concerns today in holding Carla Kizzert in love as she works through 2 diagnoses of 2 different autoimmune diseases. She welcomes positive thoughts and emails and snail mail over phone calls right now. And I also invite those of you online to use the comments section to share with us today people you are holding in your heart. And for those of us here, we can silently name those we hold dear and want to lift up in this community, knowing that these names, though silent to our ears, are held closely in our hearts. Our prayer for today was written by Annie Forster and can be found in For Praying Out Loud, Interfaith Prayers for Public Occasions. We speak to the God, the goddess, the spirit of life, the eternal. We speak to the mysterious thread that connects us one to the other and to the universe. We speak to the deep wisdom at the center of our beings. We embody the yearning of all people to touch each other more deeply, to hear each other more keenly, to see each other's joys and sorrows as our own, and know that we are not alone. Unless we create solitude for ourselves, and even then, community awaits us. Out of our yearning, we have come to this religious community. May we help each other proclaim the possibilities we see, to create the community we desire, to worship what is worthy in our lives, to teach the truth as we know it, and to serve with justice in all the ways that we can, to the end that our yearning is assuaged and our lives fulfilled in one another. In the silence of this faith that is unique to each of us and still the same, may peace be shared.
Good morning. So I am taking a course called Spiritual Ancestors through the Wellspring program, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about my own spiritual ancestors who I've been inspired by within the Universalist tradition. And there are many. We have an incredibly rich heritage of visionaries and rebels and heretics and you name it. And I find myself drawn to the rebels and the heretics a little bit. So I've got 3 different people I'm just going to touch on briefly. It won't be a big history lesson, but going all the way from starting in the 16th century in Transylvania to the early 1900s in Orlando, Florida. So Francis David was a preacher. He was originally Catholic, and then I think he was Lutheran, and then I believe he was Calvinist, and he ended up being advisor and in the court of the King of Transylvania. And he was a rebel and a visionary. He pushed back against the standard orthodoxy of the times. At the time, there was the Trinitarians versus the Unitarians in terms of deciding the nature of God. And there were many other questions that he was looking at as well. And along with another court advisor, he influenced the King of Transylvania to first through a series of debates where they were openly able to debate these questions of doctrine, which in itself was, for that time, pretty remarkable, to be able to openly debate these questions that people felt very strongly about. And after about 10 years of debate, The king came down on the side of the Unitarians, but being broad-minded and with the influence of his advisors, they issued an edict which said all religions are respected. All preachers can preach their truth and not be jailed and not be persecuted for it. And to me, it's remarkable. This happened in the 1600s, or sorry, the 1500s. And unfortunately, I'm going to attempt his name, John Sigismund, I believe, died young shortly after this edict took effect, and shortly after the country was, officially Unitarian. And his successor was not as broad-minded. And Francis David, who had such an influence on the king, continued as he was officially the bishop, the Unitarian bishop, and he continued on his search and his push to push the boundaries and ask questions. But the successor to King Sigismund really banned that practice of innovation and free thinking. And Francis David ended up ending his life in prison, where he died. But it's a remarkable story, and it's inspiring to me because here was a man who really wanted to question the standard orthodoxies, and that resulted in, the very first establishment of our Unitarian faith in Transylvania. So now we'll fast forward a few hundred years to the mid to late 1800s, and there are two women, Mary Safford and Elizabeth Gordon, born in the Midwest, who from a very young age questioned the standard orthodoxies of their time. They both had Unitarian relatives in their circle and parents who were supportive of their intellectual curiosity. They grew up in the same town, connected with each other, and in their early 20s committed to essentially a ministry together. And Mary Safford became a Unitarian minister at a time when it was difficult for women to become ministers. They didn't get a lot of support, even within our Unitarian faith. There were some people that supported them, but at that time, there was a lot of pushback about women going into the ministry. But these two women were fired up. They mentored many other women who also went into ministry and founded churches in the Midwest, and eventually towards the end of their professional lives were two of the founders of this very congregation, First Unitarian Church of Orlando here in Orlando in 1910. So they are incredibly inspirational to me as well. So if you are interested in learning more about any of these remarkable people, there's lots about them on the internet and on our UUA website. They're all inspirational, and I'm very proud of our heritage. So thank you for listening, and blessed be.
I also am a member of the Wellspring Spiritual Ancestry program. It was July of 2019, and some write-up had been published about the Wellspring program, and I was curious to know more about it. So I went over to Linnea And I said, Linnea, what's going on with Wellspring? How does it work? What's the core of it? Could you tell me more about this? And in her nurturing and supportive way, she said, you'll love it. And that was it. I'll sign you up. And I've been a member ever since. Sources in 2019 and the deep questions, exploring the principles last year. And this year, I'm co-leading the Sources group and participating in the spiritual ancestry. Now, Wellspring has what I call low guardrails and a wide path. And I appreciate Louise speaking about our spiritual ancestry, and it is nothing short of extraordinary learning about these people and what they have provided that we are enjoying today. And in the exploration of this ancestry, I see a lineage. I see a passing down of the tendencies, a passing down of the important factors and principles that are guiding our behavior and our understanding and our moving forward today. Now, I have taken the spiritual ancestry course in a little different direction for a lot of my personal exploration. And I began looking at my grandfather. I know he was born in England. He moved to Winnipeg and then to Victoria, the west coast of Canada. But really, I hadn't paid much attention to what actually happened, what motivated him. And so I want to recount a little story in a little more detail about that. He was born in 1886 in December in the Grove, Ely, in London, England. He was raised, his family, he went to school. All of his roots were there. And yet at 19 years old, he closed his bank account, put his money in his pocket, packed up a little suitcase, and he walked up the gangplank onto a ship. 1905, excuse me. And he took a weeks-long voyage to Montreal. Got on a train, traveled halfway across Canada, 1,500 miles, went to the land office in Winnipeg and somehow got a plot of land, and this was part of the incentive. It was free land at that time. Somehow he got out to the land, probably a horse and buggy. And here he is on day one. We all have had day ones. This was his day one. Standing on the open prairies, grassland as far as the eye can see. And I'm thinking, what is going on with this man? How could he be putting himself in danger? No support system, no 7-Eleven around the corner. He had to figure it all out. I don't think he took training when he was in England for farming. Somehow he figured it out. And it would be the summer, I'm quite sure, although I can't confirm that. And I suspect in the 100+ degree heat, he was praying for winter. But when winter came, he was praying for summer because it's 30 below zero in the winter. He married, had 2 children, a 2-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. That would be my dad. And after being 5 years on this prairie, built a sod house that was dangerously leaning, but stayed upright. He got on a train with his family and went all the way through the Rocky Mountains to the west coast, to Vancouver. And then he got on another boat and went across to Victoria, an island on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And there he stayed for the rest of his life. He had a beautiful home, raised his family. And what I notice in this, and this is what the spiritual ancestry is bringing forth for me, there is an undercurrent I'm seeing. There is a tendency, a leaning, a shaping of our decisions that I'm not sure I was aware of. So I looked at my own life and the correlation. Here I am living on a sailboat with my wife, now ex-wife, and a baby boy. And 3.5 years, we raised him on the sailboat, and then somehow I decided to sell everything, put our possessions in a truck, and leave Canada. And we came down to Seattle. And then we went to Alaska. And then we went to Baltimore. And then we went to San Francisco, Napa Valley, and that's where we ended up staying. But I see the lineage, the ancestry, the tendency, that deep current underneath my life. And I find that to be so fascinating. And that is part of what Wellspring has encouraged me to explore and to realize. The expansion of awareness is what has been occurring by doing this Wellspring program. I want to leave you with a quote this morning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it fate. And as I look at the correlations between my grandfather and my life, I see this unconscious that Wellspring is helping to bring out into awareness, for me to understand and more clearly make the choices I need to make, and the shaping of my lineage's future. May you be well, and may we all thrive. Thank you.
Please say the words with me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you for these beautiful stories of our ancestry. As Elandria told us, we must care for ourselves. We must care for our family and friends. We must care for our communities. We must practice extending care to those we know and those we don't know, so each and every person can get free. We must remember that our actions affect others. This is how we will all work towards liberation for us all. May the care our ancestors generously offered guide us to go out into the world and lead with love.